then the stage is yours. Go ahead.
Thanks. Okay, I'll just wait for a second. I just want to share my screen so that you can see the presentation. Uh, okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. So, all right, so let's begin with this project, and I will announce the title a bit later on. But first of all, many of you would recognize this picture. It's a picture of Timnit Gebru, who is an ethical AI researcher who works in AI ethics or who used to work in AI ethics with Google. And she had to leave Google because of a conflict over one paper where she tried to highlight the problem with the face recognition systems. And essentially, the case that is there is that it's not an exceptional case, but this has been happening to a lot of people who raise ethical questions in AI. And so this project is somehow motivated about the voices or the voices that raise ethical questions about AI and how they are sort of shut down in favor of the positivist approach to AI and how technology itself and not just the inclusion of say racialized people, that there are not enough racialized people doing an AI, but like not enough questioning of the technology itself is happening, is the feeling. So this project tries to address that. Okay, so my presentation has stopped. All right. AI against AI is the title, the sonic dissonance. So essentially, there's a double move here. One is to try AI on the terms of AI against itself. And then the second is to de-hierarchize the senses that we see favored on because of the hierarchy of the senses. And there's a beautiful book by Professor Yanis Hamialakis called The Archaeology of Senses, where they try to deconstruct the historical narrative of how the senses, how the hierarchy of the senses exists, and why do we see a lot of projects in AI about paintings being generated by AI or about the animations or the faces or the portraits are being generated from AI. So the idea is to move to the sound in order to de-hierarchize this hierarchy of the visuals. Yeah, so this is all about Timnit Gebru, how she was forced out of the Google while she was working with Black in AI affinity group and championing diversity in the industry. The reason that Google gave was very opaque, that the paper did not meet the bar, but essentially it was never revealed what were their concerns or which bars did the research paper not meet. This is another documentary which I guess many of you must have seen, which problematizes the facial recognition system, especially how it fails to identify women of color. And the similar system we are seeing now in India, where the government is really focused on using facial recognition system, especially for identifying activists and protesters in the street, and essentially misplacing the use of this in order to culpabilize any random person that they want to persecute under the guise that this person was recognized as by the face recognition system as part of something. Yeah, so these are like the overall problems with this. The project tries to destabilize the hierarchy of the senses. The idea is to feed the models a sonic corpora, which is based on different text that sort of puts in center the the Black sonic culture, the African American sonic culture, and the Asian sonic culture. And this sort of sonic color line that Jennifer Lynn highlights in her book, which is identifying people using their accents or stereotyping the accents, how, like, is it possible actually, while training the models to move out of the stereotyping is the question of this project. And so the idea is to feed this project with the music that is mentioned in the Black Atlantic and with the texts that are there in the sonic color line. Yeah, so that's an excerpt, like a review of the Black Atlantic book. This is a project that we did before in HKW Museum in Berlin. Some of you might have seen it, those who are in Berlin, which is called a slightly curving place. I contributed as a researcher in the project, and it's like a project that lays out the ambisonic sound across in a space where you can walk in. So the idea is to create a sonic specialty. In this project, we recorded all of the texts which were pre-written, and then they were pre-recorded, and then they were laid out on an ambisonic system. And in this project, what I'm trying to do is to do this via AI. So what we have discussed, the Black Sonic Opera, if it tries to create something that can be laid out inside an ambisonic system in order to create this new specialty, a new space, a space of our own, where we can sort of kind of deconstruct the constructs that we are always put in. So this is one of the key. One is to create like a fully translatable taxonomy, which is from text to sound, since these are the two main parts. So like the idea is to keep a taxonomy, an initial taxonomy that will be then continuously updated by a translation mechanism between text and sound. And so the idea is sort of somehow move out of a kind of like a voice stereotype that would sound a text or read a text in a pre-given thing, but instead create a mix of sound based on the text. Yeah, provide Black sonic cultures for to train the models. Let sonic interaction in the space happen freely. So yeah, so like those who are visiting this physical space where the ambisonic system is, or the virtual space, can interact with the system, and then can this sound then further adds to the sonic corpora. Yeah, so then feed it all to the ambisonic systems, walk in the space as the black sun surrounds you. And yeah, it's not about diversifying existing technologies. It's about creating technospheres, like our own ecosystems in which we can create the technologies and not always seek technologies and then diversify them, saying, okay, this is not just for a few people. What do you hear and when you hear? So the sonic senses, the auditory senses, or the oral is in the focus in this project. And finally, yeah, sonic dissonance. That's the title of the project. It's really in the initial stages. We still have like a lot to do. And yeah, those who do not question that there is a bias in AI, I'm looking for team members. So thank you.
All right, Vinit. We had to come to an end now, and I would like to invite everyone to ask questions. And we have Isaac already.
Thank you, Vinit. In fact, Nida will be bringing this ambisonic installation to Dubai, and I've heard a lot about it. I love that you're taking this form as an inspiration, although I gather her approach is a little bit more forensic as opposed to, say, raising awareness of facial recognition bias. I think it's great that you're doing that, and I'm still searching for a connection between the form of the install and the subject matter that you're working with. With respect to the hierarchy of the senses, if you want to do further research about this idea, I would definitely recommend Martin Jay's book, Downcast Eyes. It's a kind of a survey of the denigration of sight in 20th century French thought. Finally, I'd like to ask the question of how you define the parameters of Black sonic culture. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's really great question. I think it's um, not left for me to define really, uh, in the sense that the Black sonic culture has laid out itself already, and there's a huge amount of work that is already available, be it Fred Morton's work in Black and Blur, or be it the work of Dr. Kojo Ashton. It's so like, I mean, references to Toni Morrison in jazz. So there's a lot of work that is already available. The idea is to enter the spatiality from it. So while you're right that in the Ambisonic project, what we were trying to do is to kind of create a space uh, from the archaeological understanding of another space via the sound. Here, the idea is to create the space from the sound of the sonic cultures. So, yeah, like the translation mechanism operates between the sound and the space, and so that is common. But we are not taking an archaeological map of an existing space. We are creating the space using the sonic parameters.